All right. Good morning and welcome back to Rotary for 2023. Very excited to have you all here. And I just wanted to call attention to one of our dedicated members on Zoom who appears to be on a ski lift. So Dr. Dick Houston, thank you for being so dedicated to join us from your ski slope adventure. We assume you have a tie on underneath that perfect. And we assume it's a very stylish tie. So thank you so much for your dedication, Dr. Houston. We appreciate that. You are definitely the talk of the Rotary meeting here. Okay, so let's go ahead and call our meeting to order. We'll start out with the Pledge of Allegiance and the four-way test. We have a blessing that Martha shared with me that I'm excited to share with you today. And Laura is going to read a virtue. Announcements, fellowship, who I don't actually, I'm not sure if it is. Oh, thank you so much. I didn't update the slide, obviously. Dad jokes and speaker, Dr. Martha Brown. So let's go ahead and start out with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic. One nation under God. Here all concerned will the United.
Right, and so let's start out with the virtue Laura.
Today, our virtue is loyalty. Loyalty is unwavering commitment to the people and ideas we care about. We're steadfast through good times and bad. Even when others disappoint us, we are resilient and forgiving. We invest in our relationships and we do what it takes to keep them whole and strong. We stand by our true friends, whatever the cost. We don't allow blind loyalty to lead us into trouble. Above all, we must be true to ourselves and loyal to what we know is right. The best mirror is an old friend. That's a quote by George Herbert. And the practice of loyalty. I am steadfastly committed to those I love. I stand by my loved ones through good times and bad. I forgive mistakes. I am devoted to keeping my relationships strong. I do not misplace loyalty to endanger me. And my first commitment is to the truth. I am thankful for the gift of loyalty. It nurtures my commitments. And congratulations to all of you for being loyal Rotarian members. You made it out today in the storm. So good job.
Thank you so much, loyal Laura. And I also want to say thank you to the Rotarians that joined us through Zoom. We've got a great turnout through Zoom today. So everybody go ahead and sit down. Oh yeah, blessing. I'm sorry. Okay, let's see here. All right, so I thought this was really a wonderful blessing that Dr. Martha Brown had shared with us. And it comes from whitebison.org, and she might be able to tell us a little bit more about that. But this is Elders Meditation of the Day from December 11th. And the quote says, "Come forward and join hands with us in this great work for the Creator." Traditional Circle of Elders, Northern China. The elders have spent years learning to pray and communicate with the Great Spirit. Their job is to pass this knowledge on to the young people. The elders have told us we are now in a great time of healing. The Creator is guiding them to help young people figure this out. We must get involved and participate. We should pray and see what it is the Great Spirit wants us to do. We need to sacrifice our time to help the people and to be a maximum use of the Creator. Every person is needed to accomplish His Great Spirit. Creator, whisper what you want me to do. And one of the things that I thought was really so neat about this blessing is it really shows how we as grown-ups, if you will, pass the torch to the youth, right? And I often am trying to teach my daughter things in life, like, you know, put your plate in the kitchen when you're done eating your food, or it's important to be kind to others, or things like that. And it can be things that we do on purpose, or it can be things that happen just by them observing how we interact with our fellow humans and things like that. And so it's so important for us to be thinking about the eyes of youth are upon us looking for guidance, even if they pretend that they're not. And so it's important to be thinking about that. So thank you for sharing that message with us. Now you can all relax, sit down, enjoy. So club announcements, Murray had posted this photo for us, which is at Boxers, which has become known as Little Vegas, a Faribault. And I think that's Natalie's line. She came up with that, Little Vegas. So this is really some nice recognition and signage for us for the work that these pull tabs and other gambling activities are doing. And it shows people that it's not just some random faceless organization that the clubs are going to, but it's actually our local Rotary Club. And thanks to the hard work of our Rotarians, people that can then associate that with the things that we do, whether it be warm our community, or Meals on Wheels delivery, or bell ringing, or blood drives, or our international projects, or whatever it might be. So I thought that was really, really cool. And do we have any other club announcements as we start the new year? Club announcements, and if not, that's okay. All right. Are you ready for fellowship?
I think so.
Are you ready for fellowship? Yeah, Carrie, bring it back. So fellowship time.
My first time, so. Okay. We have several birthdays. We have. It's. Greg and Natalie's and Kurt's and Cindy's was on the first. And I'm missing one.
Roger's on the fifth.
Yeah. So many born. So if you go to anybody who was born on the fifth, bring them to Rotary, they go on here. So, we're gonna go ahead and do. Budget, anything at this table?
After you, Greg.
Well, Rebecca and I had a wonderful Christmas and we were able to have an open house at our home on Saturday, and we were just gratified with so many people who came. And while I was gone visiting my family for 5 days in December, Rebecca was hard at work, overcoming the mess that I had left, and the house looks terrific, and my office looks great, and I'm just grateful for all that she's done to not only make my life better, but the house looks terrific.
I forgot to have a thing. Sorry. First time. All right, so. Happy birthday to you.
$2. Had a chance to visit some family over the New Year's holidays, so spent some time in Michigan. And it was fun, except for watching the Michigan football game. That was not fun. But I did put an extra $1 in there because after Michigan lost, Ohio State lost too. So I think we cheered just as loud for Ohio State losing as we did for Michigan, trying to get their win. So, but happy to be here.
Anything at this table?
Gophers won.
Friday.
Oh.
For the rest of the winter.
Going to Arizona on Friday.
$1 in there for Martha Brown and for your classification speech today, and $4 because I'm so impressed with Rice County's ability to plow. And I should add Faribault, not Northfield. I live in Northfield, and when I left, I still wasn't plowed out this morning. But the county roads were, and Faribault was, so thanks to making that possible.
Want to thank you to Kurt for making it today. I thought an hour ago I was going to be leaving the meeting, so fortunately I didn't have to.
Last week, part of what I was doing over Christmas, and I didn't have to do bulletins, was rounding up the rest of our historical records for this club. All the ones that I've gone through for the 100-year anniversary, and it was time to move them to the historical society. And in part because we're cleaning out our storeroom at work and the area around my desk being supported with boxes. So it was nice to bring them all there. Sue and her staff were very appreciative, and we're gonna have, our own wing over there? Their own shelf, for sure. Their own shelf. Go over the shelf at this club. So I'll still be going through some of the stuff that we have, but we're reaching the digital age, so a lot of what we do now is that's being recorded digitally, and we're syndicated data, and that kind of stuff too. So that's good. And also, before Christmas, I mentioned that we had surpassed our highest membership goal, and then we put this stuff away. I came up with, no, we didn't. So in 1988, we had 83 members. So Dick Houston needs to get off the slope. Back down here to earth and get moving on the next to my feet. Good. Those people back in '88 were bottom all. Mark was here. Don Johnson, Dave Behrman, just George. So those were some of the ones back in, but yeah, we made it up to 83. And just, I was telling Kurt, this is one of those overlooked things. We did our vision process back in 2006, when Grant was president. His goal for this club was 100 members. So it's taken a while, but I think we're in striking distance here to get this to 100 in the next couple of years. So keep that in mind, and we're going to keep working towards that goal.
And the front table, anything here?
Dr. for our speaker today. Looking forward to learning more about you. For Greg and Becca's open house, that was a lovely event. It was great to see a lot of Rotarians there. Open up your home to us. Thank you. And I also have a few dollars in there to recognize Jim Crowell. Him and Donna came to our Christmas concert at Our Saviors. And they spent Thanksgiving with Kurt and I and my family. And we took them over to Wisconsin for some really good barbecue and all the eagle sightings not long ago. And of course, good ice cream. Jim loves good ice cream. And those of you who know Jim and Donna, and those of you who don't, they are very committed to Faribault. They love our community. They live a life of service. And they're very loyal. And they were my neighbors for 7 years. And once Jim got his diagnosis, they downsized and moved to Cardinal Point. But we remained very close and had coffee every week. And going there after this. His funeral is this Saturday at 10:30 at Holt Funeral Home, and they have visitation at First English on Friday from 3 to 6. So maybe I'll see some of you there, but I just wanted to honor him for a moment. My in-town parents, so we need a lot. Thank you.
Anything else? Natalie, thank you so much for sharing with us about Jim. Jim had the rare ability to be able to share as much about himself as he did in taking interest in the person he was talking with and kind of tease out of them information about their own lives. And that's really a unique set of skills that not a lot of people possess, because typically in a conversation, things can tend to get a little lopsided. One person might talk a little bit more and dominate the conversation, but Jim was able to find that balance so effortlessly. And I believe that every person that we come in contact with, we can learn something from. And one of the things that I learned from Jim is that everyone has a story, everyone's story is worth hearing. And Jim took great pleasure in learning about what made people unique, what their values were, what their journeys were, and he was genuinely interested in hearing about that, learning about that from everyone. And so let's all do our best to learn from that. And as we come across people who I'm always telling you be kind, which I know you always are, and let's take it a step further and ask some thoughtful questions that we come in contact with and learn from Jim. And that's just one of the hundreds of great traits that make him such a wonderful, wonderful man. So, David, again.
Kurt, could I say another something?
Yes.
Remembering Jim reminded me of something I wanted to share. So I lost a dear friend on Christmas Day. His name was Fred Birch. He lived in Owatonna, and Fred was introduced to me about 3.5 years ago. And during a very challenging, personal, dark time in my life, he came into my life, and we were great Christian friends for 3.5 years. And I will miss him terribly. He leaves behind 2 20-something children, and Fred very tragically died in a work-related accident on Christmas Day. I thank God that I was able to have dinner with him a couple of days before, and he was just a great friend of mine. I will miss him terribly, and in a lot of ways, the good things that have flowed into my life are as a result of the friendship that I enjoyed with Fred those 3.5 years.
Jim Crowell came to Faribault, if I remember right, as director of our YMCA here in Faribault, and was really, really well liked. And I always remember him with his donkey.
Thank you so much, Rod. I always loved hearing your thoughts and recollections, because you knew everybody. And Jim was actually a fan of mules, which I found out is a combination of a donkey and a horse. And he said that they have a gait that's like riding in a Cadillac compared to riding on like a buckboard, for those of you that know what a buckboard is. So he thought that that was pretty sweet. And if you got him going on mules, then the conversation might get a little bit more one-sided. It might go on for a bit with that. Yeah, so let's see here. Okay, now I really hope that Lisa is joining us on Zoom, because I've been holding this joke just for her, and in all honesty, I forgot to get a backup joke today. So let's hope that Lisa's on Zoom, and if she's not, well, she is. Awesome. Okay, Lisa, this one's for you, and this is courtesy of Eric. So, my dad joke. I usually wait until the end for my dad joke. So let's circle. No, I'm sorry. I'm all out of sorts because of the winter break. We can't take any more breaks. Okay, so does anyone remember the chiropractor dad joke that I shared? Anybody? It was about a week back. Yes, I know. When Eric told me that joke, I did not wait to share it with you, and I had to wait till first. There was a meeting that Lisa wasn't at, and then we had the holiday concert, and then the break, and I was like, I cannot wait. So Lisa, I hope that you have tears rolling down your cheeks and you can hardly breathe right now. Or perhaps you've heard it 1,000 times. Either one, but I thought that was pretty good, and thanks to Eric Craig for sharing that joke with us. All right, so now I am so delighted to welcome Dr. Martha Brown to the stage, and we are excited to hear from you. So come on up, Dr. Brown. Let's give it a shot. This is yours. Oh, we don't want to play though, right?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Martha Brown, and the first thing I want to say is please don't anybody call me Dr. Brown anymore after today.
Okay.
Just,
Duly noted.
just, I don't think the students do that. My name is Martha Brown. I'm 56 years old, and for most of my life, I've been asking myself this very question: who am I anyway? Am I my resume? It comes from a Broadway show, A Chorus Line. And one of my life mantras is there's a show tune for everything. So I'm always quoting show tunes, and one of the signals that I'm really stressed and kind of starting to lose it is when I just burst into a show tune. I don't know how to talk about myself, about who I am. I would much rather talk about my accomplishments and my resume because that's what I'm comfortable with. For most of my life, I have defined myself based on what I do and what I've accomplished. So, because of that, that's all I got today. That's it. Thank you. Hey. For 1 minute, Kurt was like, "Oh my gosh, can you check the box on the speech?" So our classification speeches are not supposed to be about our resumes. And I've had many sleepless nights then trying to figure out what to tell you. And I landed on using some analogies and metaphors to tell you my story. But first, a little background. I was born and raised in Mill Creek, Pennsylvania, which is a township outside of Erie, Pennsylvania. My 4 siblings were all born between 1953 and 57, so they were raised as a group and had very different experiences than I did, and I came along in 1966. My dad was a funeral director. He had his own funeral business that he built from scratch out of an old farmhouse. And we, 5 kids and 2 parents, lived above that funeral home. And that led to just a whole different kind of childhood and upbringing than most people have. My high school friends remember playing hide and seek and sleepovers in the funeral home and in the casket room. And all of the siblings remember that we couldn't walk on the floors, we couldn't flush the toilets, we couldn't watch TV, we had to stay silent as a mouse upstairs because it was an old house and the floors creaked. So it had its own little weirdness. We were what I call upper poor. And although my parents did the best they could, we were still and still are a pretty dysfunctional family. When people ask me, why did you move to Minnesota? Do you have family here? And I say, no, I moved to Minnesota because I don't have family. I can't tell my siblings this is going on YouTube now. Luckily, I had musical talent, which my mother recognized early on. And when there wasn't a body downstairs, I could escape to the piano, which was in the chapel of the funeral home. And she used to play too. We lived on the 3rd floor. The laundry was in the basement. And so imagine how many trips a day with 5 kids she went up and down all those flights of stairs. And she would stop sometimes in the chapel and play hymns out of the Methodist hymnal or out of the Reader's Digest books to relax. And I would sneak down the stairs as a little girl, peek around the corner and listen to her. And I think I got my love of the piano and music from her. So the piano was my safe space, and my music has always sustained me and has been the one constant in my life. So this collage shows a hodgepodge of the different things that I am. I'm a musician, an academic, child, adult. I have never been able to say this is who I am or this is what I do, which is why I dread when people ask me those questions. About 6 years ago, after I got my doctorate in education, I was teaching online courses in restorative justice at Simon Fraser University in Canada. And I learned about the tale of the hummingbird. You can look it up on YouTube. There's some beautiful videos of it. But here's the short version. A forest fire was raging and all the animals fled. And as they turned to look back to watch their home go up in flames, the bear noticed that the hummingbird was flying back and forth from the lake to the fire, from the lake to the fire. And every time the hummingbird flew, it would get a drop of water in its beak and fly over the fire and drop a drop of water. And the bear yelled, "Hummingbird, what are you doing? You could die. What are you doing?" And the hummingbird said, "My turn. I can't tell this story."
Okay.
The hummingbird said, "I'm doing what I can." And that really resonated with me for my whole life after that. And I've always tried to advocate for people who are marginalized and disenfranchised. I've always sided with the underdog. And I truly think I was just born with a strong sense of social justice. I stand up for myself when I need to as well. So I have made the hummingbird my logo for my consulting business. I'm wearing my hummingbird earrings and that are made by an Indigenous artist, and Kathy got me a hummingbird necklace for Christmas. Kathy, I need another metaphor to illustrate where this drive to do what I can leads me, one that speaks to how I live my life. The hummingbird represents my values and drive, but the octopus is the other side of things. It's intelligent, it's a fierce predator, it loves decorating its den, and it's tender when its trust is earned. And it's eight-legged, able to glide along peacefully, but quickly change course when it needs to. Until only recently, I have felt like a headless octopus. Each tentacle represents the different interests I have, the different things I do, but without a center. I've been without a center. I've always had my tentacles in lots of different pots and always felt that somehow it was wrong, that I wasn't normal. I wasn't like other people. I've never been able to focus on doing just one thing, like so many people seem to be able to do. So I went to Eastman School of Music to become a music teacher right after high school. But then a year into it, the thought of doing the same thing for 30 years and being in a classroom for 30 years, I freaked out. And I just changed my major and I went and did something else. And that's what I've done a lot. I have changed my direction and path in life a lot. Not really planning my next step, but going wherever the opportunities were that were in front of me at the moment. Kind of like how an octopus moves when it's evading predators. And I felt a lot of shame and embarrassment about this because I never felt normal. But in the past few years, I have learned to embrace my inner octopus. It started around 2018 when I was in Vancouver, Canada, and I saw this t-shirt at Indigenous art galleries, the place I got the earrings. And there was something about the way this octopus was depicted. It was almost revered. Kind of like this one too. Resonated with me. So I started wearing this t-shirt a lot because I felt like it depicted who I was. And that's why the t-shirt's pretty worn out. But it actually helped me to own and embrace my inner octopus. Then, largely because this talk was coming up, I figured out how to use the octopus to represent my life. Almost like it's a graphic organizer. That's when the head came back on the octopus. And I started to feel okay that I wasn't just one thing. Or that the way I make a living isn't doing just one job. You know, I'm a member of the gig economy. You know, it's hard, but I couldn't be anything else. I'm all of these things. And for me, that's my normal. Being an octopus is my normal. So to bring these metaphors together means that my approach to all the many things that I do and all the many facets of myself is that I do what I can. I've given up on perfectionism, which drove me for a lot of years and drove me crazy for a lot of years. I've given up on the false idea that I could somehow change the world, which also drove me for much of my life. I now do what I can within my sphere of influence. Each of these animals is fiercely territorial. They usually appear alone and not in a group. And that too is like me. My tendency is to fly solo, work alone. I have a huge bubble around me, and I need a lot of personal space. I do not do well in crowds. I have general anxiety disorder that makes being in large groups extremely difficult for me. But like the hummingbird and octopus, when others come around, my tendency is to drive them away or flee. But this summer, my friend Amy and I did a 58-mile bike ride. It was a bucket list thing for me. And I used the money that raised, I used the bike ride as an excuse to raise money for Community Action Center. And I raised over $700 from friends donating on Facebook. And this picture is us after a 30-mile ride, and we both looked much worse than that after the 58-mile ride. So shortly after this ride, Dick Houston invited me to join Rotary. And I was fully prepared to say no to him. My dad was in Rotary when I was a little girl, and I knew it to be a whites-only, men-only organization. And even though it's trying to be more inclusive, I didn't want to join an organization with this kind of history. Which pretty much means almost every organization that there is, so, you know. But obviously I joined anyway, and here's why. I started thinking that if I had done that bike ride with more people, we would have raised more money for CAC. In other words, I could have more of an impact if I joined up with other hummingbirds, also doing what they can. And as a flock, we have so much more impact than any of us can ever have flying alone. When Dick shared with me all the ways that this Rotary Club works to make a difference, I saw that quite possibly by working alongside many other hummingbirds, maybe we could put out some of the fires raging in our community. Thank you. Do I have to take questions?
If you are willing, you're not obligated to. Two items. One is there was an excellent documentary a couple of years ago on Netflix about a diver that befriends an octopus. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
Wow, that made me
It's
cry.
called My Octopus, My Teacher.
Yes, yes,
And it's, yeah,
that's wonderful. And then
that also helped me put a lot of this together.
I also know that in some small towns, funeral directors also offer ambulance service. Did your funeral offer that as well, or?
We didn't have an ambulance, but my dad always had a station wagon that, when it wasn't hauling kids to school, served as sometimes a hearse. So he had a little, remember this Pontiac station wagon? It was the first car I drove. He installed little snaps along the back windows so that he could put up a vinyl curtain in the back to block out the windows when it was time for the bodies to be driven from point A to point B, and then we took those curtains off when it served as a normal car.
Have you ever taught piano lessons?
I tried to once and I won't do it. I don't have any patience. It takes a lot of patience, and I was a terrible, terrible student, because I didn't practice. So I didn't want to have to sit through, even though the money's good, I didn't have to sit through other students who were just like me, who would come in and not practice. And about the time that I started thinking about getting into it, parents were starting to ramp up this over committing their kids
saying that parents, many parents are still on it today, it's soccer, tomorrow it's this, next day it's this, next day it's this. And like, so when would the kid practice piano? Right, on top of everything else. So I just decided to keep my music for me. And the audience.
Remind us when you moved to Faribault, and then my other question is, how did you get involved with the CHC?
We moved here, we showed up August 14th, 2020, in the middle of the pandemic. And lived out on Cannon Lake. We've always kind of been involved with food pantry type service. I think we were kind of looking around for ways to get involved. And
That's when they were started.
I'd heard about them, and then one day I was on the internet, and their grand opening of the Faribault location was that day at 4 o'clock. And I'm like, let's go, and that was kind of the beginning of it.
Thank you so much. I really love that hummingbird story, and that is so awesome how you share your talents to do what you can to drive positive difference. I really appreciate that. Thank you. What a wonderful, wonderful presentation. All right, so with that being said, I am going to adjourn the meeting. Feel free to relax and enjoy as long as you wish. We're not shooing you out of here, but the longer you stay, the more you'll have to help clean up. All right, I hope you all have a wonderful day. Be kind to others, and we'll see you next meeting.
And I am looking.